Greetings, brothers and sisters. Today we're going to be looking at how did the Seventh-day Adventist Church become Christian back in 1957. I'm your host, Dwayne Nelson. I'll be presenting this reaction video to ADL. See, I'm not against these guys. Definitely not against my brother. But we do have to make the record straight. Hopefully, one day we'll be able to see eye to eye. I'm your host, Dwayne Nelson. Without further ado, let's jump right down into it. Please like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff that only you can do. Help out the video if you like. May God bless, and let's jump right down into the video.
I must acknowledge you as a cult. So in order for me not to acknowledge you as a cult, then you need to come in harmony with the rest of the evangelic world.
That's right.
And so obviously there were some changes that took place, but primarily there were two major changes that were made, and it was published in a book. I don't know if you want to go back, Brother Jason, a few slides back to those two books. There was two books you saw there. Yes, these two books.
Yes. It's interesting that they are actually entertaining this, because they're Trinitarians. They're Trinitarian. I'm guessing all. I'm not too sure about the name, Devaney. He's not sounding too Trinitarian, but you never know. Trinitarian. Trinitarians are strange stuff, man. They can swallow a lot of stuff. Yeah, being a Trinitarian, you can do a whole lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. But anyways.
So I'm going to speak about the Alpha under Kellogg in a little while, but the book that was published under these three men were the book Questions on Doctrine. And what this book, very dangerous, what this book pushed out there were actually an undermining of our faith. There were two primary errors that were pushed from this book. One, that the atonement was completed at the cross.
Oh man, he's okay. What's the second?
Now, if one can fully, now I don't doubt that the atonement, the Bible speaks about the atonement, Jesus dying on the cross, that had to do with the atonement. But based on the Bible, there's something called the Day of Atonement, in which what Jesus done on the cross, he finishes it within the most holy place of the heavenly sanctuary. A dying lamb cannot save us alone. We need a living priest that must minister that blood. So we need a dying lamb, but we also need a living priest. And so what happened was Questions on Doctrine came out with this theology that the atonement was finished at the cross. Therefore, by default, then, what we as a movement believe, that on the Day of Atonement, Jesus went into the sanctuary to make final atonement, all of a sudden it becomes null and void. Then this idea of a sanctuary, Jesus cleansing the sanctuary, then there's problems with that doctrine.
Yep.
Another doctrine, which was greatly, and I tell you even today, there's a lot of confusion, the humanity of Jesus. Now you say, what in the world, the humanity?
Okay, see, I missed the point. There is one doctrine above all of them. All of those errors spring from the primary reason we were a cult. And it is the Trinity. Without the Trinity, none of those things that he's mentioned matters. The Trinity denies what we believe about Christ. The Trinity denies the atonement. You can't have either of those things being a Trinitarian. So the primary reason, because those two things that he mentioned, they were secondary. The primary problem that we had, because even if you think about today that we are Trinitarians, we still believe, well, not everybody, but it's still in the church, this belief about the true nature of Christ. There's no problem with that. They say, yeah, you sounding like a cult when we talk about these things, but they really come down and say, okay, you all guys are a cult. But I tell you one thing, you touch the primary reason. You touch the Trinity, and you'll see they're going to all be in unison, and there ain't going to be no going back from that. Seventh-day Adventist is a cult. Again, the reason why we stopped being a cult was because of the Trinity. There's no way, no doubt about that, no way around that. There's no way around that. The reason why we stopped being a cult is because we began to be a Trinitarian. That's the reason. That's what that book led to. And it's sad that the brothers doesn't see that. I think the guy is pretty honest. He's sincere. He's sincerely wrong about this. All of them. They're sincerely wrong. The problem that they have, and neither one of them would have a platform You'll see, not just the outside world, not just Babylon will start to call us cult. Our own preachers will start to call us that, and they will disconnect themselves from us. Because to stay connected with us will bring them into the fray as well. They ain't gonna do that. They work too hard to be where they are. And nothing they will permit to get in that way. Nothing. Nothing you can say, nothing you can do. The brother's studying about it, and it just goes over my head how they don't see that. You have to be not looking to not see, brothers and sisters. You have to be desperately not looking to not see.
Jesus, what does this have to do with anything? Now, your understanding of what humanity Jesus took is very key on what you're going to understand about righteousness by faith and victory over sin. There's two lines of thought within the evangelic world, and I would say the remnant. Unfortunately, what the evangelic world believes is now within the remnant. And as I say, there are sincere men on both sides, but one is Bible and one is false. Righteousness by faith can be defined. Everything is defined. See, Desmond Ford's issue was not so much the sanctuary. I know his big claim, he came out with the sanctuary and said, all that is foolishness, that Jesus went into the most holy place, 1844 foolishness. Desmond Ford's deceived. And Bible, it's clear we can prove that 1844, Jesus went into the most holy place. But Desmond Ford's real problem was the issue of victory over sin and his issue on what constitutes sin. This was his. See, if you have a wrong foundation of what's sin, then
I think that, well, I don't agree with that, what he's saying there about Desmond Ford. Desmond Ford came to this conclusion because of that book, Questions on Doctrine. That was his whole fundamental foundation was Question on Doctrine, because he really believed that. The problem that what Desmond Ford was doing, it wasn't about the what happened in 1844. See, that is secondary. The primary thing was what happened when Christ resurrected. That's where everything stems from. What happened when Christ resurrected? According to Desmond Ford, when Christ resurrected, he went straight to the most holy place. And he stayed there. And he did. There was no need to wait until 1844. Everything happened when Christ resurrected. And that right there was the problem. You see, the church couldn't answer Desmond Ford then. That's why he made such a big impact. I don't know if 1,000, but hundreds of pastors left the Seventh-day Adventist, if not 1,000. A lot of pastors left the church when Desmond Ford put that when we excommunicated him. I mean, that's not really, but when we parted ways with him, let's say it that way. So you go ahead and do your thing, but you can't be part of the Seventh-day Adventist church because that's not what we believe. And I can't really fault them for that, because I think it was the right thing to do. You can't keep the wolves inside the sheep pen, right? That doesn't make no sense. He's a wolf. You have to get rid of him. So on that point, it was needed. The problem I have is, why did they do it? They did not do that because they was able to prove that Desmond Ford was wrong. Because Desmond Ford, he was speaking about Hebrews, right? That's where I think Hebrews 9. He would say, hey, this is the premise for everything that I'm saying. Says he right there what that said. Jesus went to the most holy place when he ascended. And the church couldn't answer it. The church could not answer Desmond Ford. And why couldn't they answer it? Because they wasn't reading what the text said. There's something strange happen when you let someone else read things for you. Something strange happened. It happened to me once when I was speaking about the 3 days and 3 nights with the pastor. I'm like, Pastor, Jesus, he was actually dead 3 days and 3 nights. And that would prove my point. And all of a sudden he told me, how did he say it? Let's show you how quick these things can happen. So many moving parts is moving, and they get you to focus on something, but it's the wrong thing. And he said to me, the Passover was not a Sabbath. See, wrong on that. Passover was not a Sabbath. I'm like, Passover? That's all I'm going to think about it. That's right, the Passover was not a Sabbath. He said, yeah, that's right. The Passover was not a Sabbath. You're wrong. I'm like, Passover was not. What in the world am I thinking? What in the world am I saying? How did I come to the conclusion Passover was a Sabbath? And I'm there thinking and thinking. He said, yeah, that's right. because of everything that you're doing, saying is wrong. Like, goodness gracious, Passover is not the Sabbath. Yeah, Passover is not the Sabbath. And he rubbed that in. And I didn't know up from down, honestly. I was like, what? No, I came home and I said, Passover was not the Sabbath. What am I saying? Passover. Wait a minute. I never said Passover was the Sabbath. I said, I never said Passover was the Sabbath. Nowhere did I even mention such a thing. He said, Passover was not a Sabbath. He got me to agree. See, I said, Passover was not a Sabbath. What am I saying? And he put it in a way that made me believe that that's what I was claiming, that Passover was a Sabbath. And I get home, I said, boy. But it was something to open my eyes, really. So you see how easy that was done. He let other people dictate what it is that you should be reading for yourself. That's a dangerous place to be, brothers and sisters. Sometimes you really have to stop, think, and just disconnect your mind and start over. Wait a minute, what am I saying? Start over. And then you walk that through in your mind and say, okay, I see where the problem is. But brothers and sisters, I went home that day. I was like so discouraged. I was like, what in the world have I been studying this 3 years? 3 years I was looking into that. And within a couple of minutes, he had me believe in something that I never did believe. And I know to be wrong. I was like, man. That's the power of suggestion, brothers and sisters. He was suggesting that was what I was saying. And I went along with it. Very easy. But Desmond Ford, let me show you what Desmond Ford was doing. This was the problem that Desmond, well, when I looked into it, this is what he was claiming. It was Romans 9 and verse 12. He said, neither by the blood of goats and calf, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. So right there, Desmond Ford, see, he entered into the most holy place. And some of the pastors in the church started say, it's not the most holy place, it just says holy place, Haggai, and went into all kinds of stuff there. Brothers and sisters, that is the most holy place. That is the most holy place. But what did Desmond Ford say? He said Christ entered into the sanctuary in heaven. See, it's clear as day. It's clear as day. And what the church decided to do was reject this. So this is not the most holy place. This is just the holy place. You know, there was 2 compartments, the holy place and the most holy place. And that was the holy place. It wasn't the most holy place. He didn't enter the most holy place until 1844. He said, hey, having obtained eternal redemption for us. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of an heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctify the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge our conscience from dead works to serve the living God. Now they were saying that, see, no, this didn't happen when Christ ascended. He went to the holy place. No, brothers and sisters, that was the most holy place. What in the world? Where did the blood go? Where did the blood go? To the holy place? The blood went to the most holy place. That's where it was supposed to go. And they made a big deal out of this Haggai. But you see, Desmond Ford had the power of suggestion. He was leading them to believe what he wanted them to believe. And when he got them there, then he put this, you see, as the most holy place. And said, what? No, that's not the most holy place. This was as simple as stopping and reading what it said. You know, there was a man by the name of, what was his name again? Ron Wyatt. Ron Wyatt, if they had listened to Ron Wyatt, this would have been explained clearly. But they rejected Ron Wyatt too, see? Oh, yeah. They rejected Ron Wyatt too. Ron Wyatt found the Ark of the Covenant. It's right there in Jerusalem. The Jews tried to take it out of the place where God has it. God destroyed a whole bunch of them. They had to call Ron Wyatt to tie him and pull him out. They know where it is. That's why they're so adamant about building the temple. Because they think that if we was to build the temple, then God would give us the Ark again. The reason why God isn't letting us touch the Ark is because we don't have a temple to put it in. We can't put it in tent. That would be unheard of. Disgrace. But this is their problem. Listen to how simple this was, brothers and sisters. Listen to how simple this was. Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once. How did Christ enter the most holy place? See, if they had accepted what Ron had found and what Ron had said, this Desmond Ford would have had no way to go. But because they rejected Ron Wyatt, God rejected them. Simple as that, Brandon said. God rejected them too. Say, yeah, you fend for yourself then. Christ entered the most holy place through his blood. There's no blood in heaven. See, Trinitarian will want you to believe that too. There's no blood. Bible says blood, flesh and blood shall not enter there. There's no blood in heaven. The blood that Christ used to forgive your sin is here on earth. And it's on the Ark of the Covenant where it was supposed to be. That's why the Ark of the Covenant was built, brothers and sisters. The temple was built for Christ. That's why it was built. After Christ, it was destroyed. That's why it was destroyed, because it had served its purpose. The Ark of the Covenant was built for Christ. His blood was supposed to go there. That's why the Bible tells us the blood of lambs and goats could not take away sins. Christ's blood only can do that. But you see, the church rejected Ron Wyatt, and God rejected the church. He's saying, you fend for yourself now. If they had accepted Ron Wyatt, they would have known, okay, this is very simple. The blood that Christ used to enter into the most holy place was the blood, his own blood. Christ did not walk in there. You see, Christ had to fulfill all of this, brothers and sisters. Christ had to be the lamb. He had to be the priest. He had to be both of these things. But there's only one Christ. When was the blood of the lamb taken into the most holy place? When? While the animal was out there alive, kicking and screaming, or after the animal was dead? It's after the animal was dead. The priest took it in. Now, you needed a whole system to do what one man did. Christ alone fulfilled all of the law. He was the lamb and he was the high priest. Now, how could Christ enter into the most holy place if he's dead? Want to know how he did it? By gravity. That's how he did it. The blood is still alive. See, just like the animal. The blood of the animal was still alive when they took it into the most holy place. But the animal was dead. The animal wasn't thinking about it. The animal was dead. This same thing had to take place. When Christ died on the cross, they pierced a spear in his side and the blood gushed out. The Bible says that when Christ died, the earth opened. So the rocks were rent. The Ark of the Covenant was directly beneath the cross. That's where the Ark of the Covenant was, brothers and sisters, directly beneath the cross. When Christ died, the blood, he entered into the most holy place, brothers and sisters, is wherever the Ark of the Covenant is. You know, when Christ died on the cross, the temple was there, but the Ark of the Covenant wasn't in there. They simulated the most holy place. They had another instrument in there. The Ark of the Covenant wasn't there. And say, okay, that's the most holy place. But the presence of God wasn't coming down into that place. Or was it? No, it wasn't. The presence of God was not seen anymore after the Ark of the Covenant left that place. And it left that place just before they went down into Babylon. When Babylon came, and God sent Babylon to conquer Israel. The Bible tells us everything that they took out. The Ark of the Covenant wasn't one of those utensils. The Ark of the Covenant wasn't there. It was hid. It was hid waiting on the blood of Christ. When Christ died, his blood went into the most holy place. So what Desmond Ford was saying, that this is at his ascension, but no, that's not at his, that is at his death he entered into the most holy place, not his ascension. It was at his death. When Christ died, that is when he entered into the most holy place. It wasn't when he came out of the tomb. Because that's what Desmond Ford was claiming. And no one in the church saw it. But that's what happened when you reject truth, see? That's what happens, brothers and sisters. When you reject truth, truth rejects you.
Everything else is wrong. Now, there are two lines of thought. Sin, under the evangelic teaching, is that sin is nature. Automatically, you are a sinner by nature, and no matter what you do, you remain a sinner by nature until Jesus Christ comes. That you are,
and that's just about right. That is just about right, Francis. Let me explain that. I don't agree with what the evangelicals say because they always mix truth with error. Maybe you have to be able to accept the truth and reject the error as well. Let me just put it this way. Christ was sin. Did Christ commit sin? No. He was sin. So if Christ was sin, was he a sinner? What do you think about that? Say, oh, he wasn't a sinner. The reason why we say he wasn't sin because we don't know what sin is. The brother is talking about we don't know what sin is, but he's not 100% sure what sin is either. Sin is not just what you do. Sin is what you are. See? Now, what you are has nothing to do with what you do. It has nothing to do with what you do. What you are is what you are. You're born what you are. Now, the decision that you make determine what you are going to be. But it still cannot delete what you are. For example, someone that is a murderer, someone murdered somebody. He go to jail, he reform, he becomes a believer in Christ or son of God. Does that mean now that that person is no longer a murderer? No, he doesn't. That title is going to stay with him until he dies. He's going to forever be a murderer. It does not mean that he's about out there killing people. Right? That doesn't mean that. You can't delete the thing that you have committed in the past. You can't do that. And even worse about what you have been, how you were born. You were born a sinner. But the problem is today we don't know what sin is. We think that sinner is someone that is sinning. Sinner is not someone that is sinning. Sinner is someone that have sin. That's what sinner is. Someone that have it. And the sin that everyone born with is with their body. So you are a sinner when you're born. This is why you need salvation. You need Christ to save you. If you don't believe me, just think about an infant when an infant dies. Well, could that infant get to heaven without the blood of Christ? And if the infant need the blood of Christ, why does it need the blood of Christ if it never committed a sin? No, Christ's blood has to cover that infant as well. The infant that hasn't even been born yet. Christ's blood has to cover that infant. Because without Christ's blood, that infant going to hell. There's no two ways about it. No human being is going to get to heaven without the blood of Christ. None. Absolutely zero. And that's 100%, 1,000% guaranteed. No one's going to get to heaven. So sin is not just what you do, it is what you are. That's why Christ had to come here in order to forgive human beings. He had to become a human being because that's the only way that Christ could have gotten sin. There was the only way to do it. Well, it wasn't the only way. He could have sinned as well, and then that would incur a consequence, wouldn't it? See, this is perfectly depicted in the woman. The woman, every month, she had to offer a sacrifice. Every month. It's her period. Every month. A sin offering. She didn't commit a sin. But it was a sin offering. She had to do this. That's why the woman represents Christ. That's why the woman represents Christ. She had to do this in order for her to be right with God. No, she didn't. She didn't have any control over that. Just like Christ. Christ didn't have any control over him being born as a human being. He was a human being. There's nothing he could do. This was the choice that he made. He became a human being to get sin. But the thing, the Trinity rejects that too. They present a Christ that has no, didn't have to go through any type of suffering or anything because Christ is God. God can't suffer. That's why this abomination is so. God can't suffer. God can't die either. Right? God can't die. So who died on the cross? Well, it wasn't God. But isn't Christ God? Yeah. Did he die on the cross? No. Who died? Mary's son died. The Bible called that Antichrist. He who denied that the Son came in the flesh, he is an Antichrist. And that's what the Trinity does. It denies because the Trinity wants his position, see? Not only his position, but all of their positions. That's why the Trinity is God. Not the Father, not the Son, or the Spirit. The Trinity is God. He is what you call God. Or it is what you call God, or how you want to put it. And today we worried about the Sabbath. People breaking the fourth commandment. You're breaking the first one. You worry about the fourth one. Start with the first one. You're breaking the first one when you put another God before Jehovah. That's what you need to be worried about. Anyways, let's continue.
Sinning just by pleading, you are sinning. That's the evangelic line of thought. This is what Desmond Ford believed, that nature is sin. And he couldn't reconcile his understanding of righteousness by faith with the cleansing of the sanctuary victory over sin. And because he couldn't harmonize the two, he just threw out the sanctuary doctrine. He threw out sanctification. Because he couldn't reconcile this understanding that nature is sin and my nature is only changed at the second coming of Jesus. So therein lies his problem. Whereas the true gospel teaches, Bible teaches, that sin is the transgression of the law, that sin is a choice, that man chooses to sin. Where there is no light, God cannot condemn you. When light comes and you choose to reject the light, then God regards that as sin. To him that knoweth to do good and does it not, and by the way, good, the law is good. He that knoweth to do good and do it not, to him that is sin. So based on what Jesus teaches, the Bible teaches that sin is based upon a man's choice. That's what sin is, based on a man's choice.
And no, that's not just what it is. That is also what it is. That's what the Word of God said. We look at that just now in Romans, right? Sin is also the transgression of the law. That's what it says. It is also that. But sin is something before that. So when you go and you commit, that's also sin. That's what the Word of God said. When you go and you murder someone, that also is sin. When you go and you steal, that also is sin. But there's something that is sin before all of that takes place. So sin is not just what you do, brothers and sisters. It is also what you do. Sin is the human body that you're born with. This thing is enmity against God. It runs on autopilot, brothers and sisters. I know people can't understand that. You know your body runs on autopilot. You don't control that. When was the last time you decided that I got to remember to breathe? I have to remember to pump my heart. I have to remember to send the blood through my veins. I have to remember. I'm gonna take control of this stuff. No, brother, all of that works on autopilot. You have no control over that. You can control what you do. When you have to mentally think about something, okay, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna walk. You can control that. I'm gonna stay here. You can control that. I'm gonna go there. You can control that. But the actual function of your body, that's enmity against God. You don't control that. The simplest way is that I can think about is think about a man. A man getting in a situation and his body starts to react. I say, I don't want to do it. No, you stay there and you see what's going to happen. You're going to see if the carnal nature isn't going to take over. Get to the point that you stop thinking. This is what Paul was talking about. He said he asked God 3 times to take this away. God said no. It's supposed to be there. That's where it's supposed to be. And what was this thing? He called it sin. He called it the member that bring forth fruit unto death. So Paul called it. And today, a lot of people think that he's talking about the 10 Commandments. He wasn't talking about 10 Commandments. He was talking about one of the 10 Commandments. And he mentioned the one that he was talking about. Paul actually mentioned the one. Yeah, you read Romans 7. He mentioned one of the 10 Commandments that he was referring to. And today, people want to talk about this. Like, he was talking about the whole 10 Commandments. He wasn't talking about the 10 Commandments. He was talking about one of those 10 Commandments. And it's the one that has to do with reproduction. That's what Paul's talking about. Read Romans 7. Take your time. And don't let people tell you what it says. But you take your time and you ask God, show me what this is saying. And you'll see if I'm wrong. The commandment that he was talking about there was the commandment of sin. And the commandment of sin was good. That's what he said. And today we talk about it like it's the 10 Commandment. He wasn't talking about the 10 Commandment. He was talking about the commandment that he found. That's what he said. I have found the commandment. I found the law. And where did he find this law? In his members. That's where he found it. And what members? The members that bring forth fruit unto that. What member bring forth fruit, brothers and sisters? There's only one member that do that. If you don't know what I mean, look at the commandment that he mentions there that he had a problem with. And then figure out what member that commandment has to do with. What member of the body. And today, people take this all, he ain't talking literally. Paul was talking literally. But you see, for us today, as a Trinitarian, we have to put that symbolically. We have to mystify that. Because only that way it will add up in the Trinity. For instance, that Trinity abomination, you have no idea how dangerous that is. And how God looks at this thing. We have made that abomination our God. Just like the evangelicals, just like all the Christians. We have made that abomination our God, because that's what the church wanted. We wasn't content with Jehovah being God. No, we didn't stop until we made the Trinity our God. And once that put his foot in, the pastors then went out of their mind. Because the leaders of the church clearly told the pastors, you better make sure that you push this. If you want to keep a job. I know a pastor that he had a problem with that. Calling Pastor Perry. He had a problem with this Trinity for the longest. But he would never touch it. He wouldn't touch it. He would leave it alone. It doesn't make much sense to me, but I ain't gonna mess with that. He was getting paid. He was getting paid, brothers and sisters. But came a point in time, he got older, and he got jubilar. He retired. So he's a retired pastor, and he was the president of the mission or something like that. And he had a big high position there. And he was preaching, and all of a sudden he decided, well, I'm going to look into this Trinity business. Now that he's retired, no one can do me anything now, see? Got my pension coming in, and everything's going to be fine. But he miscalculated, brothers and sisters. He didn't know how long their arm was. He miscalculated. So he started to preach against the Trinity. This isn't biblical. And he started to come out and say, people are like, what in the world? What are you saying? And then he started to show them from the Bible. And people started to listen. That was a mistake. People started to listen. Pay attention. See, if you don't nobody, they don't have a problem with you. Yeah, you can believe whatever you want to believe. Just take that to your grave. But the moment you start to say, I'm going to share what the Lord is showing me, that's when they started to pay attention in a different way. And they came for him. Now, he thought he was untouchable. He said, no. They was going to take away his pension. Oh, yeah, Brandon said they was going to take away his pension. And when he saw that they were serious, he said, well, let me get my lawyer and say, well, wait a minute. Let me just hold off on that one. Oh, yeah, brothers and sisters, they're going to take away his pension. Being painful. Can't I make this up, brothers and sisters? He thought he was untouchable. And they run that pastor into the grave. He retired to die, brothers and sisters. It wasn't long after he retired that he was in the grave. And he figured out what the pressure was. You don't mess with the Trinity, brothers and sisters. This thing is dangerous. And the people behind that is even more dangerous. I don't care about. They would do whatever it takes to get rid of anybody that decided they're going to speak out the truth about the Trinity. That is the powers that be, brothers and sisters, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church today. That's the power. I ain't saying that they went out and put a hijab on anyone, but they made the life of that pastor impossible. And they call him all kind of names. They run his reputation into the ground. And he thought he was untouchable. But they showed him how far their arm is, how far that stretches. Yeah, we can reach you where you is. He had children too. They threw them out too. They were teachers and stuff. They fire them. No connection whatsoever. You can't make this up, brothers and sisters. This is what the Trinity is. An abomination shows itself for what it is when you touch it. And everybody that's connected with that, you see how fast they start to get in line to persecute you. This is serious stuff, brothers and sisters. This is why the pastor stays quiet about this. And those that get to the end and say, okay, now I'm just about ready to, I ain't going to need it. I got my pension now. I can say whatever I want. You can what? What? And no, it doesn't go that way. He said, let's sit down and talk about this, and we do got nothing to talk about. Because you might say something that would make sense to me, see? You might say something that would make me think, you don't speak to me. I don't want to hear it. Brothers and sisters, we just open our Bibles together, and if I'm wrong, then you show me. I don't want to hear what you got to say. None of that. Yeah, brothers and sisters. It was so sad when I heard that he had passed away. This guy was healthy. Stress, brothers and sisters, is a killer. The stress that passed out. And he thought that, that the church would have, because he started teaching the church, obviously, they went against him too. Why? Because they listened to the pastor, see? And the pastor got on and they poison. This is someone that lived there all his life. He went off and studied, he came back. And he was actually from the place. Everybody knew him. And the pastors poisoned the members' mind against it. They called him all kind of stuff. All kind of, like, what in the world? The dangers from within, brothers and sisters. The dangers from within.
So if you have these two lines of thought, if sin's nature, then by default, I must come to the conclusion, if sin's nature, and this is what Desmond Ford believed, which Desmond Ford clearly embraced Omega. If sin is nature, then by default, Jesus could have no wise came with my nature. Because if he came with my nature, by default, Jesus was a sinner. So Jesus couldn't have come with my nature if sin is nature. However, the true gospel says sin is a choice. And if sin...
But this is something else that like, I'm not bashing the brother. He is further along than most. He's getting there. He's getting there. Hopefully he see what the real problem is and he speak out against that. But once you do that, the whole dynamic changes. You can be invited on these type of panel anyway. That's for sure. I think I need to do you. But anyways, what he said just now is that if Jesus was born with our nature, that means that he had sin. That's what Desmond Ford was rejecting. So when he said that that's what Desmond Ford was rejecting, he was tend to think that this is what he accept. That Jesus, when he came here, he had sin. You would think that that's what the brothers them accept, but that's not what they accepted. It's the kettle cussing the pot black, basically. Because if that's what Desmond Ford believed, if Jesus had our nature, he would have to be a sinner. Then it's a normal conclusion to say, well, they're saying that we don't believe that. We believe that Jesus came with our nature. But when they say nature, notice what they are referring to. See, this is why words are so important. When the brother said nature, is he referring to the human body? Or is he referring to something untangible? Which one of the two? It can only be one of the two. If you believe that Christ came with our nature, then what is the nature? You would normally think they would start to say, well, he had the same tendency. He had the same tendency. Really? And what tendency was that? Give me one of these tendencies that Jesus had. This is where I decided to draw blanks. Wait a minute, let me stop and think about this. Well, what's the tendency that Jesus had? Because I believe that. I believe that Christ came with our nature. The problem here is that they don't know what nature is. Their definition of nature is very vague. Listen to how simple my definition is. Nature is the human body. That was the nature that Christ had. Human nature is the human body. This is why when Adam sinned, something left him. The glory of God left him. What was left with Adam? His human body. This is what he saw, the human body. This is what made him feel ashamed, the human body. Wasn't anything else. The human body was the problem, the very first problem that he saw. And everything stems from that problem. When the Holy Ghost left Adam, when the Spirit of God left the brightness that surrounded Adam, when that left Adam, he was bare naked. And he saw something that I shouldn't be seeing this. Both of them saw a thing that I don't think I should be seeing this. It's the body. Was the first sin that they saw. Was the first thing that they decided we need to cover. First thing that they tried to hide was their body. The body is the nature, brothers and sisters. Not that the thought. Was Christ thinking about fornicating? Was Christ thinking about that? See, they always help to define what this nature is. Clearly define it, and that's where they're going to problem. Because whatever they're defining is not the body. See? But the Bible says that Christ was tempted in all, just like we are, yet without sin. Being tempted is not a sin. Now tell me this. What is required for temptation? Now you cannot have temptation without this. What is required? What is required for temptation? It's very simple. You must want that. You cannot be tempted by something that you do not want. Just stop and think about it, brother and sister. You cannot be tempted by something that you do not want. There's something that's not appeasing to you, pleasant to you, attractive to you. You can't be tempted by something that you hate, can you? So if Christ was tempted, that right there tell you that it had to been appealing to Christ. And today, they would say, well, that's sin. Well, yeah, they would all tell you that. That's sin right there. If it was appealing to Christ, then Christ wanted to sin. For that, I always answer this thing. Let's just stop and think about this. The Bible tells us that Christ went out into the wilderness to, this is where I'm going to prove what sin is. You can't make this up, Branson. Christ went out into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. And the Bible says after that time, he hungered. And then Satan came. And Satan said, I see you're hungry. Prove that you're the Son of God. Turn those rocks right there into bread. You can do it. If you're the Son of God. Christ could have done it. He knew he could have done it. Was Christ hungry? Yes. Or you think he wasn't hungry? The Bible tells us clearly that he hungered. Was Christ hungry? The answer is yes. Could Christ turn that into the rock into bread? The answer is yes. No, Christ being hungry, he wanted to eat. He wanted the bread. Was he sinning for wanting it? You see, that want is very different from wanting to fornicate or do something like that. It's very different. Because when you're doing those things also is sin, the Bible tells us. Yeah, when you want to fornicate, that also is sin. Because that want stems from something different. It does not stem from a necessity. It stems from a desire, which is totally different from what Christ was going through. Christ had a necessity. The body needs to eat. See? The body needs to eat. The body needs to drink water. The body needs to rest. And there's a whole bunch of other things that the body does, brothers and sisters, on its own. When you smell food that say a piece of people that eat pork, what do you call this thing now? Beef steak? No, what we call it? Jerky? I don't know. There's something that they fry. I forget what they call it. But this thing has to be very appealing scent. Someone that eats pork, they walk in and say, okay, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist now. I'm not going to eat any more pork. And they walk by someplace that is frying this, lewd in my mind. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. It's little strips. Anyway, you walk past someone and they're cooking this thing and that scent hit you like, oh, when you smell that, all kind of thing comes in. Oh, you know how good that tastes. You remember when you see this, how you used to enjoy this, that pork. Oh my goodness. And you walking by and now you have a decision to make. You can't stop breathing, can you? I'm going to stop breathing, so I'm not going to breathe it in. I'm not going to smell it. First of all, you can't see it. Number one, you can't see it. You can't see scent, right? You can't see it. You don't know where it is. You walking by and the scent is there, you smell it. Now, in that instance, your body does a reaction. This is outside of your control. You can't tell your body, I don't like that, because you do like it. It smells good and it appeases you. That's not a sin, brothers and sisters. Sin would be when you give into it. See, the body is asking you things. You decide whether you're going to give it or not. Because the body will say, I need that. I'm hungry now. Because you smell that scent and all of a sudden, oh my goodness. You want that. It's appeasing to you. That is a temptation. These are the temptation that Christ was going through. The temptation of the body. It wasn't temptation external to the body. The sin that Christ was dealing with was the sin of the flesh. The flesh wants these things. The flesh needs these things. But you decide whether you're going to give it or not. Christ wasn't tempting himself. He was being tempted. And he was being tempted by his body. The sin that he had. That's what was tempting him. But you see, if we don't accept that the body is sin, then we can't understand any of this. Besides to call the 10 Commandments sin. You can't make this up, brothers and sisters. Have mercy. Have mercy.
Sin's a choice, then Jesus could have come with my nature and could have lived a sinless life because he chose to do so. So these are the two lines of thought. And then if sin's a choice, then guess what? I can't gain victory over sin by yielding my will. My will is the power of choice. In Matthew 26, in Gethsemane, Jesus gave us a perfect example of yielding his will, which is the power of choice.
Okay, let me show you something else. Now that we're talking about that, let me show you something else. We're going to go down here to Romans. Was it Romans 6, right? It's Romans 6, right? Is it Romans 6? I know it's Romans 7. Here we go. Romans 7. Listen to this, brothers and sisters. Can't make this up. Should we go further up? Yeah, let's look at this. We can read from verse 10. Actually, let's read from verse 8. No, we read from verse 7. Have mercy. Read the entire chapter. We're not going to read the entire chapter. Excuse. Okay, listen to what this is. Verse 7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I have not known sin, but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law said, thou shalt not covet. This is the commandment that he was talking about. He was talking about the 10 Commandments. He talked about one of the 10 Commandments. Now, listen to what this does. It says, but sin, taking occasion by the commandment. Which commandment? And say, okay, it's talking about this commandment, thou shalt not covet. No. No. It's not talking about that commandment. It's another commandment that exists in here. This is one of the 10 Commandments that tell you what sin they're committing. But sin, taking occasion, sin. See, if you understand that sin is your body, you wouldn't think that the commandment was this one. But see, for Trinitarian, they think that sin is the thing that you do, not what you are. But sin, or the body, taking occasion by the commandment. So which commandment is he talking about here? Must be a commandment of sin. The commandment of sin, and we'll see that in just a little bit. Wrought in me all manner of concupiscence. You gotta look at this word concupiscence, brothers and sisters. This is the vile word. This is the basis of sexual immorality. This is some deep stuff here, brothers and sisters. Concupiscence. You gotta really look that up. I ain't gonna look it up here. Look it up yourself. For without the law, sin was dead. Without the law, the body was dead. See, if you're thinking that this is the 10 Commandment, this is going to give more questions than answers. For without the law, the body is dead because the law is in the body. And without the law, then the body is dead because the body wouldn't react. This is the law that he was talking about, the law of reaction that God placed in the body. The body simply reacts to the situation that it's in. But we are the one that decide whether to follow up on those reactions or not. We don't want to do that. For I was alive without the law once. Which law? Is it the 10 Commandments? No, it's not the 10 Commandments. When did Paul not have the law? When was he alive without the law? When did that take place in his life? He was a Pharisee. When do you think that was? When he was a child? When he was an infant? Would he be mentioning that? Doesn't make any sense, does it? But if you understand that sin is the body, then it does make sense. He's referring to something. For I was alive without law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. When the commandment came, when did the commandment come? When did it come? Think about Paul's life. Paul's life was a life of solitude. Paul lived for the church. He was always in the church. He didn't have time for anything else. But once he became a follower of Christ, now he had to interact with people. He had to do his best to save people. He had to be likable. He had to be tactful. People want to be around him. That wasn't the case before his conversion, was it? Let's stop and think about that. If you think that that was the case before his conversion, I don't know how you come to that conclusion. No sensible person would come to that conclusion. When sin revived was when he became a follower of Christ. Now that he had to interact with women. Not just men, but women. Because before they didn't used to interact with women. When he was out chasing the children of God to put them in prison, to kill them, he wasn't interacting with women. He wasn't interacting with men. But now, you see, he has to interact with everyone. And that right there is a double-edged sword, isn't it? Not only men have to like you, but women also have to like you. And if women like you, then women like you. Simple as that, Brandon. If women like you, then women like you. All right? This is when sin revived. Now, he is in different situation that he wasn't in before. See? Different type of situation that he wasn't in before, that he didn't even notice before. And the commandment which was ordained to life. Now listen to this. The commandment which was ordained to life. Which commandment was ordained to life? Thou shalt not covet. That's the commandment that was ordained to life? No, it has nothing to do with that. The commandment that was ordained to life was the commandment to be fruitful and multiply. That's the commandment that brings forth life. There's only one member that has anything to do with that. But he said, I found that commandment to be death. Why? Because we bring forth fruit to die. We bring our children here to die. That's what he was talking about. For sin, taken occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me. Was this the 10th commandment? It's not speaking about the 10th commandment, Brandon. It's speaking about the commandment of the body. God had set commandments in the human body, and the human body reacts to these commandments. The commandment to reproduce, the commandment to sleep, the commandment to eat, the commandment to do anything that the body has to do, God put that there for it to do. Doesn't mean you have to do everything. But you don't decide, brothers and sisters. I mean, you do decide, but you can't stop the desires. You can't stop the desire. The desire are placed in the human body. This is the commandment. Now listen to what verse 12 says. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just and good. Now what commandment he's talking about? Is he talking about the 10th commandment, or is he talking about the commandment of sin? See, we understand sin in the body is just the commandment of the body. But today people don't, it's anything but the flesh. Anything but the flesh. All right, let's go down. Let's go down. We won't spend too much time here. Let's have verse 22. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. But I see another law in my members. Here it is. Another law in his members. Is this law that he see? Is this the 10th commandment? Is the 10th commandment in his members? Or is the 10th commandment on a table of stones? It's on table of stones, not in his law. It's not in his members. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind. Now, where is the law of the mind? Which law is that? Now, those are the 10 commandments. Those are the things that you decide. God said, this you shall do, and this you shall not do. You decide. But you don't decide about the other one. You can't decide that this is not what you want. This is not what you want to feel or something like that. It doesn't happen that way. It's there, and it's going to do what it was programmed to do. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity. What's bringing him into captivity? The law of his members. And it started out that way. Let's go back up to the top. This is how this chapter starts out. Know ye not, brethren, for I speak unto them that know the law, how that the law had dominion over a man as long as he is alive. Why as long as he is alive, because as long as you are in this body, you're going to be subject to that law. This is why Paul said, I'm going to take it from me. God said, no. No. As long as you're alive, you're going to live with that. He wanted God to take away those desires from him. Because the body was doing what the body was designed to do. He said, I don't want my body to do this. God said, well, you can live with that. You can live with that because everybody else can live with that. And you ain't going to be an exception. But I see another law in my body, in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity. His members that he's talking about, what do you think? Which member do you think he's talking about? You're talking about the member of the reproduction. He wanted to be celibacy. He wanted to be celibate. That's the word. He wanted to be celibate. He didn't want to ever be with women, but he couldn't stop this thing. Not just because you decide you're going to be celibate, all of a sudden your body ain't going to work. It doesn't work that way. He asked God to remove that from him 3 times. God said no. He called it a thorn in his flesh. Now, what's a thorn? How does a thorn look? We couldn't put it together. And he had something in his eye. Yeah, when God healed him, he really didn't do the job right. You can't make this up. You see how they would actually say that God made a mistake when he healed Paul. He didn't really heal his eye. When the Bible said that the scale fell out of his eye, not all of the scales. There's some of them. God leave a couple of scales in there, just to bother him. Why? Why would God do something like that? God just felt like doing it. You can't make this up, brothers and sisters. That all come from that abomination called the Trinity. That Trinity, God, he would delight in the suffering of God's children. He delights in it. You can't make this up, brothers and sisters. That abomination, man, I tell you. And bring me into captivity unto the law of sin. So he's into captivity unto the law of sin, which is in my members. So as long as he's alive, he has his members. The only way to get away from that is that, and when you go up to the first part of the chapter, it tells you that. It tells you that. As long as he's alive, he's going to be subject. He's going to be, that law is going to have dominion over him. The only way to escape that is by dying. Only way to do it. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? From the body. Who shall deliver me from the body? You see, we don't want to believe we read that and we understand anything but what it says. Anything would do, as long as it's not what it says. Can't make this up. This is what the last verse said. I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, with my mind, I serve the law of God. But with my flesh, the law of sin. He did the 2 things up until he died. He served the law of God and he served the law of sin. Did both things. Now, is Paul lost? No. But you see, he would be lost if we understand this the way people think it is today. Let's think about 10 Commandments. He would be lost, wouldn't he? But I mean, today people can get to heaven sinning. Okay, that's the normal way that people think today. We can't stop sinning. We're going to continue sinning until Christ comes. And when Christ comes, then he is going to stop us from sinning. He's going to make it that we can't sin. He's going to take away our free choice. When he takes away our free choice, then and only then we will not want to sin. But if he doesn't take away our free choice, we're going to want to sin. Sin's going to perpetuate throughout all eternity. God's going to have to do something. But why doesn't he do that right now? If that's the solution. Can't make this up, brothers and sisters. Can't make this up. So I don't agree with the brother on that point.
To God's will. And when a man yields his will to God's will, that man is choosing righteousness over sin. And Jesus gave us a perfect example in the Garden of Gethsemane. I'll come back to Jesus if we have time. Garden of Gethsemane. So if in the second line of thought, which is the biblical side, then if sin's a choice, then I can gain victory over sin. And then all end time events then you see it perfectly that I have a limit to gain victory over sin. Whereas on the opposite end, as Desmond Ford taught, you can be a sinner and remain a sinner, covered by grace, no matter what, until Jesus Christ comes back. And when he comes back, only then will your nature be changed and you'll gain victory over sin. And so these are the 2 lines of thought. And what I'm saying, question on doctrine, never side with the biblical side. But questions on doctrine, unfortunately, went over to the wrong side. And obviously pushed theories which are unbiblical. Now, these are the 2 books. Living Temple came under the Alpha by Dr. Kellogg. questions on doctrines came under the Omega by men within the conference. Now, what's the difference? I believe it's the same deadly heresy, but what's the difference? Living Temple, it was the medical missionaries that introduced the Alpha. Omega, it will be the theological branch of the church that brings the Omega. So which one's more dangerous? Which one would the church be more inclined to receive? It's the one that comes from the theological branch, because we trust that those who are teaching theology must be teaching the correct thing. And therefore, that makes the Omega much more dangerous. Now, I do have a slide to show at least a picture of the Alpha and Omega, to show us at least, Brother Jason, if you can pull out that iceberg.
Before we do that, there's a question that I think I would like us to get straight. So there was this question that just came up. So God did or didn't create sin. Where does the Bible define sin as just a choice? I don't think that's what you were saying, but can we clarify this?
Yes. So the Bible defines sin as the transgression of the law. And then it says, to him that knoweth to do good and does it not, to him it is sin. So what the Bible is saying to us, that sin, obviously a man must choose. He knows good and he doesn't choose to do the good, and he chooses to do something else, to him it is sin. So biblically speaking, a man sins by his choice. And what sin? The transgression of the law. God did not create evil. In no wise did God create evil. Actually, Sabbath, we're going to be actually studying into the topic of the mystery of sin. Good question. Actually, our old Sabbath service study is going to be answering the question of how did sin come into the universe from the Bible and spiritual prophecy. So, God in no wise created sin. Sin is an intruder for which there's no reason for its existence. So I don't know, brother, if that.
We have to make up our mind towards this. Now, there's another one that constantly comes up, and it's the next statement that this person had said. So, have you stopped sinning? If not, then you prove John 1:36 is not true. And so, I think the Bible makes it very clear that this is something that we should strive.
Yes.
Whoever abides in him, sin if not. So, this is something.
There you go. You can't make it up. Right on cue. You must strive. You can't stop sinning. You just try to stop sinning. Isn't that the same thing Desmond Ford was saying? You can't stop sinning. You just try to stop sinning. Can't make this up, brothers and sisters. It wasn't far.
That we should strive towards. But I think the Bible is very clear, even in 1 John, at the beginning of 1 John, behold what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew not him. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And
if we are going to be like him, does that mean that he's going to have sin? No. We shall be like him because we are like him. See? And him is without sin. He's not trying to not sin or trying to make it. There has to come a point in time when you make it. You can't be trying all your life and die trying. If you die trying, you lost. Simple as that, brothers and sisters. Well, I think we're going to cut it short here, but let's just let him finish his point.
Men that have this hope in him purify himself even as he is pure. You know, the goal is, it tells us very clearly that we're going to be just like.
No, it says, we purified himself even as he is pure. We purify ourselves. That's something that we have to do on our own behalf. Now, God gives us all the tools to do this, but we have to. It's like if someone say, okay, you need to dig a hole, and you start there with your hand scratching, and you say, well, you gotta shovel right there, Oh, okay. Well, there's also a tractor there, and he can dig a lot faster with that. Now, God put the tools there, but you're the one that has to work those tools. You're the one that has to do the work, brothers and sisters. Now, the work is easier, as opposed to digging with your hand, as opposed to doing it with a tractor. The work is easier, but you still have to do it. God gives you the tools to get it done. He make it as easy as possible, but there's nothing easy for the Christian word. That is impossible. Easy? It is impossible to do. That's what the Christian word teaches.
Jesus Christ, who never sinned. He in his choices, when he was presented with Satan, the choice was always, thus saith the Lord, it is written. He lived by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. And the Bible is telling us that we're going to be like that. And so we should be striving every single day to get that victory over sin. And of course, we will never say of ourselves, I have arrived. You think about Job, God would show this in case.
I don't know how you can say that I have never arrived. I can say that right now, brothers and sisters. say a prayer, Lord, forgive me for all my sins, seen and unseen. At that moment, I am without sin. Have I arrived? It's not about arriving. It's about staying. And with that, I'll cut it short. May God bless and keep you. My prayers for you. I'll go back. Yeah, I'm going.